You promised, she whispered under her breath, lips barely moving, smile fixed like porcelain as her hand squeezed mine a little too hard under the dinner table. We don't talk about our problems in public. I nodded, smiled too, just like she wanted, just like I always did. But my fingers were already brushing against the phone in my pocket. The recording was there, all 11 minutes and 37 seconds of it. Her voice, low and teasing, telling her boss things I used to think were mine. My private things. The jokes. The confessions. The tone. God, it was the tone that undid me. The sound of her voice with him wasn't angry, wasn't distant, wasn't bored. It was alive. And it killed me. Let me back up. Not too far. Just enough to tell you the part where I started losing her without realizing it. That's how it always goes, right? The death of a marriage never looks like a crash. It's quieter. A tire going flat on a long road. You don't notice until the whole car starts dragging sideways, and by then it's too late. Claire used to look at me like I was the last person in the world who could hurt her. Now, she looked at me like I was the last person she'd want to see cry. It started small. We stopped fighting, but not in a peaceful way. In a vacuum-sealed, emotionally distant kind of way. We started saying, "I'm fine," instead of "I'm hurt." Started replying with "maybe later," instead of "let's talk now." Her phone started facing down more. Mine stayed charged but untouched. We ate dinner next to each other, not with each other. And then came the rules. We don't bring up personal stuff around my family. It makes them uncomfortable. Can we not argue before bed? I won't sleep. Let's keep our problems between us. We don't need to air dirty laundry. I agreed. Every time. Because I thought that's what love did. It compromised. It respected boundaries. But I didn't realize she was building a silence she could hide inside. And I was the fool who helped her build it. 6 weeks before the family dinner, I borrowed her iPad to send an email. She'd left it unlocked, probably forgetting it was synced to her messages. I wasn't snooping. Not at first. But there it was, a string of texts with a contact saved as M. M. Had a lot of late-night conversations with my wife. Most were casual. Office gossip. Complaints. But the tone shifted the further I scrolled. Flirty emojis. Compliments that lingered too long. Jokes that crossed lines in ways only people with chemistry dare to walk. Then came the voice notes. And I shouldn't have listened. But I did. I sat on the floor of our laundry room for almost 2 hours with the door shut, lights off, headphones in, listening to my wife flirt, giggle, confess, not once, but again and again, with a man I'd shaken hands with at last year's office Christmas party. Mark. Her boss. Married. Charismatic. The kind of man who looked at everyone like he already knew their secrets. Turns out he knew hers too. She told him she missed being seen. That she missed feeling wanted. That sometimes she wished she could just pause her life and start a different one. He told her she could. That she deserved more. More. More than me, I guess. That night, I lay in bed next to her while she scrolled through Instagram and pretended nothing was wrong. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream. But all I did was ask if she wanted tea. She said yes without looking up. We drank in silence. For weeks after that, I didn't confront her. I started recording instead. I saved everything. Voice notes. Screenshots. I even backed up her call logs, message history, anything I could preserve without tipping her off. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed clarity. I needed something real in a marriage that had turned into a haunted house of smiles and avoidance. Claire didn't even notice the shift. She thought I was just being sweet, overly helpful, a little quiet maybe, but steady as ever. That was the thing about her. She only noticed the chaos. Silence felt like obedience to her. The invitation came in a blue envelope with gold lettering. Her parents' 40th anniversary dinner. Formal, catered, speeches, family from all over. Claire was giddy. She spent hours planning her dress, rehearsing a toast. She made me promise one thing. Let's not bring anything up that'll make it awkward. Not tonight. Please. I agreed. I smiled. I nodded like a good husband does when he's already made up his mind to leave. The dinner started like any other. White tablecloths, wine glasses clinking, polite laughter, warm anecdotes about love and longevity. Claire leaned in and kissed my cheek in front of everyone. Her mother smiled. Her father clapped me on the back. But I couldn't stop hearing her voice in my head. Her laugh in those messages. That vulnerable sigh when she said, "I wish you were here right now." Not to me. To him. Then came the speech. Claire took the mic. She thanked everyone for being there. spoke beautifully about love, about sticking together through hardship, about how her parents taught her that communication is the key to a lasting marriage. She even turned to me and said, "That's why we never fight in public, right, babe? We keep things sacred. We handle our business in private, just like you taught me." Everyone smiled, clapped. Her sister elbowed me playfully. "Trained him well, huh?" she joked. I smiled back, but my thumb was already hovering over the play button on my phone. The speaker was ready, Bluetooth connected to the dining room sound system. Claire had linked it earlier for music. She didn't know I'd renamed the file to something innocent. She didn't know I'd rehearsed this in my head 100 times. She didn't know the man sitting next to her was already gone. And then I did it. I pressed play. It started with static, just enough to make everyone pause. A confused glance from Claire. A raised brow from her father. Someone chuckled, thinking it was a tech glitch. And then her voice filled the room. I know I shouldn't be saying this, but sometimes I wish I didn't go home. Not yet. Laughter. Her laughter. The version of it I hadn't heard in over a year. Warm, electric, the kind that only shows up when you feel completely seen. Then his voice. "Mark, you know you could always stay. You know I'd want that." Claire's hand reached toward my phone too late. I moved it just out of reach. People froze. Forks midair. Smiles halfway drawn. Her sister's wine glass stopped before it met her lips. I stood, slow and deliberate. I didn't shout. I didn't even look at Claire. I just looked at her parents. Forgive the interruption, but since we're celebrating love, I figured everyone should know what it actually sounds like. Another line played. "You always make me feel like I matter, even when I'm falling apart." Mark again. "That's because you do matter. God, if you were mine." Claire lunged then. Not gracefully. Not in control. Her hand snatched for the phone, eyes wild. Mouth opening but no sound coming out yet. But it was too late. The words kept spilling. The intimacy. The jokes. The little nicknames. The plans. "I keep imagining us on that weekend trip," she'd whispered. "No hiding. Just you and me." The gasp came from her mother. Claire finally found her voice. "Turn it off," she hissed through clenched teeth. "Please, turn it off." I did. Not because she asked. Because I'd made my point. The silence afterward was suffocating. Claire's father looked like someone had sucker punched him. Her mother just stared at the floor. Her sister looked stunned, the smugness gone, replaced by something close to pity. Claire turned to the room, voice trembling. "This is a mistake. That was taken out of context." I cut her off. Don't insult them like that. Don't insult me like that." She opened her mouth again, but I was already walking toward the door. "You said we don't talk about our problems in public," I said, turning just before I left. "But the thing is, we don't have problems. We have lies. And you wanted to keep them private because it was easier to wear a mask when no one else could see the cracks." Her voice cracked. "Please. Not here. Not like this." I stared at her then. Really stared. And for the first time, I didn't see the woman I married. I saw the stranger who'd been sleeping in her skin. "It had to be here," I said quietly. "Because you only care about the truth when other people are watching." Then I walked out. I didn't go home. I didn't check my phone. I just drove. No destination. No plan. Just asphalt and numbness. Somewhere along the highway, I pulled over. Sat there for an hour, maybe two. I thought I'd cry. I didn't. I just stared at the dashboard, at the flickering reflection of my own face in the rearview mirror, wondering how long I'd been gone from my own life. She called. 17 times. I didn't answer. She texted. At first, panicked. Then angry. Then desperate. I made a mistake. It wasn't serious. "Can we talk? You embarrassed me. You humiliated yourself. Why would you do this to us?" That last one made me laugh. Us. As if there was still an us that didn't live inside a lie. I drove home long after midnight. Her car wasn't in the driveway. The house was dark. I knew what I needed to do. I didn't sleep. I packed. Not in rage. Not in chaos. Neatly. Precisely. I left the things that didn't matter. Took only what I needed. And on the kitchen counter, I left one thing. The phone, still unlocked, still queued to the last voice memo. A note next to it. "You said love means protecting each other's image. But love doesn't hide truth. It survives it." This wasn't betrayal. It was the end of pretending. The next morning, I was gone. I didn't hear from her for 4 days. Not a call. Not a text. Not a knock on the door of the place I stayed. And in those 4 days, I kept waiting for the hurt to hit like a wave. But it didn't. It crept. In strange places, like the quiet of brushing my teeth alone. Or reaching for 2 mugs instead of 1. Or hearing a song on the radio that she used to hum in the kitchen while frying eggs barefoot. Always off-key, but always confident. I didn't feel anger. Not really. What I felt was something heavier. Something sadder. A kind of grief you can't explain to anyone without sounding stupid. Like mourning someone who isn't dead, or worse. Mourning someone you now realize never really existed in the way you imagined. When she finally reached out, it was a voicemail. I listened once. Her voice was calm, carefully composed like a business pitch. I just want to talk. No drama. No yelling. Just talk. She said she missed me. She said she'd made a mistake. She said she didn't want to throw away everything we'd built. And then, her voice cracked. Please don't give up on us. But here's the truth. I didn't give up on us. She did. Quietly. Slowly. Like someone turning down the volume on a song they used to love, but now found inconvenient. And I was just the fool still dancing to it in the other room. We met once after that. Neutral ground. A coffee shop halfway between our house and my temporary apartment. She wore the red sweater I once told her made her look like autumn. Warm, soft, familiar. She smiled like it still meant something. Like she still believed in the power of small things to fix big cracks. I didn't smile back. She started talking first. She apologized. Said it wasn't an affair, not really. Just feelings, just mistakes, just a moment of weakness. I asked her what she was looking for when she started talking to Mark like that. She paused, then said, I just wanted to feel chosen again. I nodded. That was honest. Painfully so. And maybe for the first time in months, I saw the real version of her, stripped of excuses, stripped of spin. I told her something I hadn't told anyone. I used to lie awake at night next to you, wondering why I felt lonelier lying beside the woman I loved than I ever did living alone in college. She looked away. I kept going. And still, I never stopped showing up. Even when I stopped believing you'd notice. We sat in silence after that. Just the clink of spoons against mugs. The hum of strangers living lives that hadn't broken yet. Finally, she asked, so that dinner, was it revenge? I looked her in the eye and said, no, it was truth. Loud truth. Because whispered truth never moved you. She nodded. Didn't argue. That surprised me more than anything. We signed the papers 2 weeks later. Quietly. Without lawyers in the room. No shouting. No name calling. Just pens and paperwork and the faintest echo of something that used to be love, but now was just history. She kept the house. I kept the dog. We split the savings evenly. I packed the last box of my things one evening while she wasn't home. I left a note on the fridge, just 2 words, take care. I meant it. Because love doesn't turn into hate. Not really. Not if it was ever real. It just changes shape. Shrinks. Folds inward. Becomes a scar you carry, not a wound that bleeds. People always ask what I'd do differently. The truth? I wouldn't play that recording again. Not because it wasn't necessary. It was. But because I realized now, the person I needed to confront wasn't Claire. It was me. The version of me that stayed silent too long. That mistook endurance for strength. That confused peacekeeping with partnership. Would I ever trust again? Yes. But I'd trust differently. I'd listen earlier. Speak sooner. And never again confuse someone's discomfort with my honesty as a reason to stay quiet. Because love that survives only in the dark isn't love. It's a performance. And I finally stopped performing.